And so just out of curiosity, I decided to look up, is Gore-Tex made with PFAS chemicals? And in the back of my mind, I was like, there's no way, right? It just doesn't make sense. But to my surprise, it turns out Gore was one of the worst materials out there. It's just expanded Teflon draped on your body, being brought into the environment. And that was really what seeded the idea for me to eventually start Indersity.
Gore-Tex has dominated outdoor apparel for 50 years. Meet the teenager who's on a mission to change that. Today's conversation is with Sam Digiambattista, founder of Indersity. In the last 2 years, Sam has developed his own PFAS-free waterproof breathable fabric and launched a technical outerwear brand. The way he talks about his work, you'd think he's been at this for a decade. The craziest part? Sam's only 19 years old. I've had a couple of conversations with Sam over the last few months, and I walk away from them with so much energy. I'm inspired by his focus, his values, and his ability to think big. I know you're going to feel the same way after this episode. This conversation had some technical issues that we did our best to work through, but what it lacks in audio perfection, it makes up for in inspiration. This is Sam's first podcast appearance, and I'm thrilled to introduce him to the outdoor industry. This is definitely not the last you'll be hearing of Sam. He has a bright future ahead of him. Please enjoy this conversation with Sam Digiambattista. And now you're living in Colorado?
Yeah.
So you're closer to the action now.
Exactly. But we have no, it's really unfortunate.
It'll come.
So yeah, hopefully it'll pick up soon.
Yeah, nice. Was that a move to get closer to skiing, or is that a move to get closer to other things?
It's a move to get closer to everything. I mean, skiing, hiking, just the mountains are beautiful. That's the first part, I guess, on a more personal level. And then also I have a lot of my athletes based out here, and also just the whole Intermountain region. Being able to get to Utah and Idaho and Wyoming within like 6 hours is like really nice and helpful. Testing gear as well. I mean, it's really dry here in Colorado, so we don't really test the waterproofness as much, but being able to just be outside skiing actively in the high alpine is definitely better than being in New York City for testing gear.
Sure.
And retail shops as well. I mean, just our markets out here. And so it's helpful for the business for me to be here, be present in these communities. And these are the people I want to be around anyways. So
nice. Good for you.
Yeah.
Just to set the stage a little bit, I don't ask all my guests this, but I feel like it's appropriate for you. How old are you?
19 years old.
I think that's something that we'll kind of come back to over this conversation because it stood out to me. Our mutual friend Alex Laver introduced us to each other, and you and I have had this one conversation, and then I was basically like, okay, we have to get this on the podcast because I feel like you and your name are something that we'll definitely be hearing more of in the outdoor industry. So I feel like, let's get this story out here early and first so that we can learn more about what you're up to. So backing it up, take me back to the time when you were shopping for a ski jacket and all of a sudden you had the idea that you're going to go start a new business.
I mean, that's really where this all started. I was on a ski trip with my friends out west and I needed a new shell jacket. At the time, I was starting to do a lot more backcountry skiing, just a lot more skiing in general. And so I was looking for something that was going to last a really long time, one, and then also I just wanted the best performance I could get. And so I went into all the shops in town, all the shops around the resort, and there seemed to be kind of two options. It was either you get a Gore-Tex Pro shell, and that was going to give you the best of the best performance, going to last you forever, or there were cheaper, lower performing alternatives, which definitely sacrificed in the performance category. And there was these unknown material brands, perhaps, or something the brand made themselves. And at the time, I, by pure coincidence, came across this article that was talking about PFAS chemicals in our everyday appliances. It talked about everything from our nonstick pans to our raincoats. And so just out of curiosity, I decided to look up, is Gore-Tex made with PFAS chemicals? And in the back of my mind, I was like, there's no way, right? Like these products are made for the outdoors. They're made to be brought into these extreme environments. People wearing them live for the environment, live for the outdoors. In the back of my mind, I was like, there's no way. It just doesn't make sense. But to my surprise, it turns out Gore was one of the worst materials out there. Right? It's just expanded Teflon draped on your body, being brought into the environment. And so that was really what seeded the idea for me to eventually start Indersity. And that's when I first learned about really what Gore-Tex was, in all honesty, being its own entity as a material company, and also just what PFAS were, the harms of PFAS for our own health and for the environment, and their presence in the outdoor communities and industry. So,
Okay, so I assume you're a teenager at this time when this story is taking place, and it's a pretty bold move to be like, this is a problem. I would like to try to solve this problem. Like, what gave you the conviction to act? As a person who could have just been like, oh, this sucks. Why is it like this? But you did something about it. Where'd that conviction come from?
yeah, it was a really interesting time. A lot of my story, some of my story is right place, right time, and this is one of those examples. This all kind of happened towards the end of my junior year in high school, and so this is when everyone started talking about college, right? Where are you applying to school? What do you want to major in? People were talking about career paths and what they were super passionate about. And while I was interested in many subjects, nothing really stood out to me. And the one thing that I really knew I loved and wanted to keep in my life, and at least at the forefront of my life, was skiing and being out in the mountains. That was the one thing I knew for certain I absolutely wanted to be around. And it was kind of like, as I was thinking, where do I want to apply? Like, what am I really applying for? What do I want to spend these next 4 years studying? The stars kind of aligned because I was at the same time going down the rabbit hole, just researching all of these materials that have been tested, what's been brought to market in this industry, and all the harms. I was like, you know what? It seems no one's really tackling this problem. No one really knows about this problem to begin with. I'm super passionate about this. Everyone I've shared this story with and this information with has completely agreed with me about how harmful these materials are and how crazy it is that this is still a thing. And so why not take a swing at this? I mean, this gives me an opportunity to pursue what could be a meaningful, impactful career, and also spend more time around outdoor communities that I love and I want to be around as much as possible, and be in the mountains testing my own gear sometimes too. And so it kind of hit me as I was like, this is what I would really, really want to do. And it was a time where it was like, you either pick, kind of go all in on university and spend those years studying, or I still have another year of high school left. I have a year to fail essentially, and I will still apply to school. I still applied to university and whatnot. But like, why not take a swing at this? Because if this is possible, I didn't know if it was possible, but I was like, if it is possible, this would be, I know for myself, so much better than anything else. So that's when I was like, I kind of have no option. Like, this just makes the most sense. And it was exciting.
Yeah, I bet. How did your friends and family react when you said you're going to take on Gore-Tex?
I mean, they were thrilled. By this point, they'd already heard me every single day talking about PFAS chemicals in outdoor gear and Gore and all the other competitors out there for months by now. Because it wasn't like I discovered the problem and then a week later or a day later was like, oh, I'm all in on this. I'm competing. It was this kind of drawn out process of me just going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, learning more and more and more. And then eventually I hit this point where I was like, there really is nothing great out there. And Gore owns this market like no one else owns it. And the brands aren't really developing their own materials to compete because Gore sells so well. No one knew about the PFAS harms. And so why would they switch from Gore? Gore-Tex Pro like has great performance. And so, but my family and friends were well aware of the harms because I had been talking about them for so long. And so they were super supportive. They were like, they already knew by the time I was like, yeah, doing this. So.
Are you familiar with the podcast Diary of a CEO? You've heard of it?
I am.
Okay.
I haven't really listened to it, but that's Stephen Bartlett's podcast.
Stephen Bartlett, that's right. So I say that because Stephen Bartlett has like an over 100% team. He's got multiple businesses. And one part of his team is this group of people that their only job is to create experiments and see what fails, because he believes that his business and every other business is susceptible to being beat by, he calls it the teenager that's working furiously in their own room on solving this problem or creating this next thing. And I heard him say that a few weeks ago, and you came to mind because I'm like, you are literally doing the thing that Stephen Bartlett has created a team of people in his business to fight. So I only bring that up to be like, innovation happens from the fringes, and the big companies like Gore-Tex or whatever brands, we typically don't think that somebody's going to come from out of nowhere to eat their lunch, so to speak. So I just put that out there because I when I hear you talk, I get totally inspired by what you're up to. So did you have early
Yeah,
signs of? Go ahead. Sorry. Go for it.
I was just gonna say, I think you're totally right. And it's interesting because I think almost every time a massive corporation is kind of toppled by a new company, the founding story is often one or two kids in a dorm room. It's typically college students, or or you might have one slightly older individual starting it like literally purely on their own. And I think it has to do with I don't think people realize how capable like an individual is as long as they're connected to, as long as they know that they need to be connected to the market and then just like kind of work relentlessly. But big corporations move really slow. Individuals can move super, super fast. And I think that's the biggest thing, that you can make up the difference in capital and resources, like having a team and everything, and just speed. At the end of the day, if you move faster, you will reach the finish line first. And so that's
Yeah,
why
and
my 2 cents on
innovation
it.
takes risk, right? And so these bigger brands are, well, they have shareholders they need to appease to, they have quarterly earnings that they need to fulfill, and taking risks by innovating something puts all that into jeopardy. And so a lot of big brands won't take the big innovation risks because of all those factors that are involved. So if you're small and scrappy and starting out in the bedroom or the basement or wherever you may be working, then it's all risk. You don't really care. Let's just do it. There's nothing but upside. Did you have early signs of entrepreneurship growing up, like a lemonade stand, trading cards, anything like that?
Yeah, that most definitely. Yeah, when I was really young, lemonade stands with my little sister. That's like the most classic example. Most kids probably did. But then towards the end of elementary school and middle school, I had this after school and birthday party magic program that I was selling to like parents in my class and stuff. And then I had this skateboarding deck company where I made custom skateboard decks. I called it fingerprint decks. That was towards like end of middle school. And then um, in high school, I started Indersity. And then I think what was much more influential in my life was just the people I was surrounded by. We were talking about like this entrepreneurial spirit, I guess. My mom was an entrepreneur, food service business that she started around the time I was born, where she was delivering healthy school lunch to schools in New York City. And I mean, she's like the hardest working person on earth, and she has been her whole life, like growing up on a farm and now doing this. And so I'm sure she rubbed off on me a ton. And then also just growing up in New York City, I was surrounded by some of the most incredible entrepreneurs just through just naturally meeting people like the kids in my classes, their families, and being able to reach out to universities like NYU and just sit in on their entrepreneurship boot camps, right? Sit in on panels of VCs speak, panels of founders, connect with founders at NYU, right? And so I've always been surrounded by um, entrepreneurs to some degree, and I've definitely had my own, I don't know, itch to find ways to make money on my own, do my own projects. And so yeah, that's the entrepreneur background in me.
I'm really curious. Were there any other kids your age in these NYU entrepreneurship workshops?
Not really, no. I
So
mean, there
you're
were,
you just take it upon yourself to sneak into an entrepreneurship workshop?
yeah, I mean, my mom went to Stern, and so she's like connected to the school, and so it was fairly easy to like just email them and be like, hey, like in the very, very, very early. This is before Indersity had any progress. Even this is when I was just kind of, we were going way back to what we were first discussing about those first few months of me just researching. That's kind of when I started going and hanging out at NYU every now and then. I was able to get my mom to shoot them an email and be like, hey, like my son Sam is interested in these things. Like,
Nice.
would it be cool if he comes and sits in on a thing, on a panel, or sits in on a boot camp? And they were like, yeah, just come by. And so
That's cool.
got to listen to professors speak, listen to founders speak, listen to VCs speak, PE guys speak, everything. And so,
Good for
yeah,
you.
and that
Good
was
for
the
you.
end. And then once I was in, I mean, they they liked what I was working on. They're
Yeah,
lovely people. They're super nice. I bet
I'm
most
sure.
kids, if you had any any idea at all, like as early stage, like you could literally just the simple idea, you could reach out and probably be like, hey, could I sit in on this? Most professors at NYU, actually, this is interesting. If you go to their Twitters, they'll post and they'll be like, anyone can attend my class, like can sit in on my class, and they'll put that publicly,
Well,
especially the online classes.
well, even though they're offering, not everybody's taking up on it. So good for you for taking them up on it and making it happen. I'm sure you got a lot out of it. How did you've said the name a couple times, Indersity. How did you come up with that name, Indersity?
Yeah, the name, this is interesting. The name was actually, I thought of the name I was maybe 13 or 12, and I was making these functional sweatshirts that had like you could zip the sleeves off and stuff, and same with pants, just for like hiking purposes and whatnot. And I guess just out of fun. This is like when I was doing the skateboard deck stuff too, so I was all into like writing business plans and whatnot, I guess. I don't know. And um I was trying to come up with a name, and I wanted like my own name. I wanted to kind of make it really meaningful to the business, and so I took the values that I wanted the company to stand for, and just combined those words together, and the sound came out to be Indersity. And so like, innovation, endurance, curiosity were the core three, and so I just mashed them all together, and it sounds like Indersity. And so then I bought the URL at the
Smart.
time, and and it costs like $9 a year or something, because no one is ever gonna buy Indersity.com because it's not a real word. And I totally forgot about it. But then like 5 years later, what should I name this company? I was like, oh, Indersity. It's the exact same values. It's very similar. It's not even that different. Like functional, like sweatshirts for hiking and whatnot is biking is what I had in mind. This is functional outerwear for skiers. It's a little different, but values.
That's amazing. Okay, so you have Indersity, and Indersity is both a soft goods brand, like a technical apparel, and you've created your own ingredient brand. So you have a product called Endershield. Am I saying it right? Endershield? Okay. So
Injure
what
shields.
came first? The idea of like,
Indersity shields.
oh, got you. So what came first? Like the idea of like, I've got to create this fabric, or I'm going to go create technical apparel. Which one was first?
Yeah, it was the fabric. I mean, in the
Okay.
beginning, I really had little to no intention of ever creating apparel, to be
Oh,
completely honest. The issue, and I mean, I'd be crazy to say there were issues in functionality of technical apparel. Like it's almost, in my opinion, been perfected. Like the way that they're now, people are emulating their elbows to like perfectly match different movements when ice climbing is like ridiculous. It's beautiful. It's great. But the huge problem and opportunity that I really saw with pressing and meaningful to me and the people around me was the PFAS usage in the actual material. So early on, it was like, let's figure out, is it possible to create an alternative solution on the material, and like what does it take, and so forth. But it was all on the material side. We got into outerwear because to test the material, obviously the lab tests mean something and they're indicative of how it will perform in the environment. But at the end of the day, you have to put it into the mountains. Like lab ratings are only helpful to a certain extent. And no one cares what the lab rating says if you're outside and you're wet, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone's going to be sitting in a factory pouring a controlled amount of water with a certain amount of pressure per square inch on their jacket. They're going to be out there hiking, skinning, skiing, climbing, whatever it is. And so we developed the material that performed great in the lab. We hit all of our targets. And the natural next step is put it into the field, right? And so that's where we created our own garment just to test naturally. But we need a lot of testing. And so we built this big team, young athletes, like 17 to 20 years old. We had like 50 of them. And so we ended up creating all these kits and throwing our material on the backs of them and sending them out for almost 2 years now. And then them testing it in our own garments, we were like, we already designed the outerwear. We already have them wearing it. They already like it. We somehow naturally kind of got this unique freeride style that really doesn't affect any functionality that you would need in the backcountry, which people seem to really like. Might as well just launch our own line. These kids, like, everyone's talking, like, they're talking about it with their friends and families and freeride teams and everything. So they already know us as an outerwear company, and they know us as a special outerwear company because of the material, of course, but we're already here. We're able to launch. Might as well bring this to the people now. Because at the end of the day, my goal is support the industry. Like I want to do my part in pushing the industry to its next step, which I think is super high performance and sustainable gear coming together. And so the quickest way at that time was to literally just manufacture our own line, launch it. So versus going through all the loopholes and building all the relationships and connections, everything to get the licensing deals off the bat. So
Right. So I don't want to blow past the fact that you developed your own fabric, which is bonkers to think about. It's much easier. Most people would be like, I'm going to create a brand of the apparel. And you said, no, 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 hold on. I'm going to go create my own fabric. So how does, and this is, you could take this in a bunch of different directions. So go with it as you want. How does a teenager in New York City go about creating their own Gore-Tex competitive fabrics?
yeah, that was the first question I asked. And the truth was, in the start, I'll just kind of go through my train of thought. I think it
Yeah.
is very aligned with what the answer would be if I were to just talk about it. Is I didn't know, right? And so what I did is I literally cold outreached every single textile mill and engineer I could find on the internet. It started with just looking up like who manufactures Gore-Tex. I didn't even know that Gore-Tex in the beginning was their own entity. Like it started from literally ground zero. And then I ended up really understanding the industry through those initial searches. And then I was able to probably cold outreach, I don't know, a dozen and a half mills starting in the US. And then I would also just scroll through LinkedIn and find who's working at these mills or who's doing textile engineering stuff on their own, membrane engineering, anything that was related. And I just send them cold messages like, hey, like I'm a huge skier. I love it. I just learned about the PFAS chemicals in Gore-Tex, and I'd love to have a conversation about it. Like is this real essentially? Like, is this really what's happening? And somewhat to my surprise, they almost all took my call, which is great. And so I got on the phone with these people and they were super lovely. I just shared kind of what I was interested in. I shared at this point the couple months of research I had done. So I was able to hold my own in all of these conversations, which I think was super key. And yeah, so that was like really how I got my foot in the door. Now, what allowed me to execute on any of this was really just the way that the industry has been set up over the last 50 years, right? And this kind of goes back to what I was initially talking about, how Gore really controls the premium market. They had everything. And so the brands were either like, okay, if we can get a Gore deal, then we can compete at this price point, the top performance. If we can't get a Gore deal, there's no competing. So then they would go and they'd look for something that give them really great margins on a cheaper alternative for people who don't need the Gore performance. And so it was either Gore or mediocre performance. No one was looking to compete with Gore because the brands weren't even all that aware of the PFAS, especially smaller brands. The consumer had no idea, and Gore was selling like hotcakes. And so at the time, I was really like seemingly the only person approaching these mills who was 100% set on bringing a solution to market. And I kind of told them, and I think this helped me too, is as like, I framed it as, this is what I'm doing. This is a huge problem, going to happen one way or another. Do you want to help me? And they all obviously were very familiar with the problem, and they all were very on board with my vision. And I think just pure determination and shared vision really got them excited. Also, a young face, I think, was exciting. There's a lot of gray hair in this industry. Nothing's changed in literally 50 years. And so I think there was an element of like nothing's changed for a reason. I've been meeting with the same people for decades. This is like the first new person to come along, and they're completely set on this new direction, like trying things in a different way. And we share this vision. Like we think he's right. And so that's how I got started working with them. And then from there, many of these mills had already gone halfway, 3/4 of the way to developing this type of solution. None of them had really finished out like that last leg because there's market seemingly to sell to. There's no brand interested. It was, again, Gore or something cheap. And so I was able to kind of be that vessel to bring that early stage development. I was able to lead that final leg with the exact performance balance, like metrics that we needed to hit, and the balance of waterproofness, breathability, weight, durability, ruggedness, all these different things that I knew the consumers needed for us to be competitive. And then we were able to work together on that final leg, we developed so many solutions, but our handful of solutions, and then eventually bring that to market. So that's kind of the progression. It was kind of just relentless persistence, and then just super energetic and positive every day. I think played a big role in it too.
And in your research and finding out now, because like PFAS is a thing everybody's talking about PFAS now, and there's legislation in California and New York that like limits the ability to sell PFAS on garments now. And so in that process, as you started to see other people in the industry be like, oh yeah, PFAS-free, that's a very normal thing now. We've all kind of shifted in the last 2 years. How is your product different than than all these other people who are working on these PFAS-free technical apparel?
When the government started talking about regulations on PFAS and ultimately implementing them starting 2025, that was arguably the best thing that ever happened to our business, because it brought so much attention to the problems that was going on within the big companies like Gore and all the brands that were supporting them. And it really opened up the consumer's eyes to new solutions. And now, I mean, especially today, everyone is looking for what's next. It's the narrative around the best shell jacket on the market, the best shell wear period on the market is really like, what is going to take Gore's place? And so it's opened up a lot of opportunities for us, because we're able to come in and tell our story, and within a minute, everyone knows exactly why it's important. They all get on board, they share our vision, and they really are like, the community is just super supportive of what we're doing. And the regulation and the awareness that the press has brought to the situation, and the $100 million class action lawsuits brought to Gore and the $1 billion class action lawsuits brought to DuPont have done a lot of that heavy lifting on the marketing side of things. And then we're here with this incredible story and with this incredible product that resonates with all of these people. And it worked out really well. I mean, when we got into this whole industry and we started working on this, no one knew, but we really believed in the vision personally, because we understood how important it was. And we thought it was inevitable that this stuff would come out. And the timing just really aligned perfectly for us, because as soon as the regulation comes out, the press starts talking about it, consumers are looking for new opportunities, new solutions. We are launching our material, right, and starting to talk about it publicly. And so it intersected perfectly and has created this really strong, loyal community around our brand. And we're set to grow really fast. And I think it played a huge role in it. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, there's inflection points throughout time that allow businesses to capitalize on them, right? So you can have a technological inflection point, the internet, the iPhone, like a lot of really amazing, powerful, strong, big businesses have been built at these inflection points. And another inflection point are regulation inflection points. So I like that you pointed that out as like, yeah, this regulation has actually helped our business. So I am not technical at all. And when I first found out about your product, I said it to my friend Casey Shaw, and I was like, Casey, can you break this down for me? I just don't understand technical fabrics at all. So you helped me understand why Indershield is better. And you can talk all the technical jargon that you want with me, and I'll just nod as if I understand what you're talking about. But I'm really curious, because I know there's people who are listening to this who are like, yeah, let's talk about the technical stuff.
Yeah, actually, you brought up Casey. I chatted with Casey. We were on the phone for like over 2 hours, and it was the most wonderful conversation. He's incredible, and I'm really thrilled that he's actually a really big supporter of what we're doing, which is awesome. And so I'm sure I'll be speaking to him a bunch in the future. And he's brilliant. Now with our material, I guess I'll start with membrane structures. So there are two primary structures that you'll see most often. And that is a microporous structure and a monolithic structure. You also have like these nanospun materials and whatnot, but at the core, the fundamental is there are microporous and monolithic membranes. examples of microporous membranes are EPTFE and now EPE. And then an example of a monolithic membrane is our Indershield uses a monolithic PU membrane that we've developed. And so historically, I think it's important to understand like how these membranes have operated in the past and what their pros and cons have been, because they both have pros and cons. And then what we've been able to do that makes our Indershield material better, right? And so historically, microporous membranes have been known to have superior moisture vapor transmission performance, right? A microporous membrane literally has these tiny holes in it, these physical holes that are just big enough for moisture vapor to pass through and just small enough for water molecules to be blocked, right? And so there was this literal hole that moisture vapor was passing through, and they've been known to have superior breathability over monolithic structures. Now, the cons of microporous membranes are that they're more fragile, and the pores, those holes, can get contaminated by dirt, by oil, sweat, right? Everything from your body. And as soon as it becomes contaminated, it starts to deteriorate the performance of the material. And as soon as you're getting wet, who cares about your performance, right? Because you're wet. You're not breathing anyways. And so those are microporous membranes. Now, on the monolithic side, the pros have been, especially in PU monolithics, they're extremely durable, and there are no holes, so it can't get contaminated. And so it's just a really durable, you can have really great waterproof ratings on a monolithic material. Now, the downsides and what people have struggled with historically is getting them to be as breathable as the microporous membranes, right? And so that's why EPTFE was so revolutionary. It was the microporous breathable element of it that made it so great. And the monolithic materials haven't done that as well. And the way that monolithic materials breathe is they rely on the hydrophilic properties of the actual substrate. So it's chemically passing moisture vapor through rather than there being a literal hole that it's traveling through. And so the other part of monolithic membranes that have been a concern to some consumers and some product developers don't like to work with it because of this is the fact that when it breathes, historically they've experienced like some amount of noticeable swelling, which is essentially when you can kind of see it take a slightly different texture, and it's because the moisture vapor is literally essentially phasing through the fabric, right? And so those are the pros and cons to them both. And historically, as we saw with EPTFE, microporous membranes have been slightly better for overall waterproof breathability performance because of the breathable performance in them. Now, what we've done in our development with Indershield is, funny enough, we actually started with microporous membranes. Like the very first thing we ever developed was an EPE membrane and material built around it. And the reason we didn't end up going with EPE is, I just want to talk about this for a quick second and then I'll get to our current solution. But the reason we didn't end up pursuing EPE and bringing that to market is because our mission when creating and when developing Indershield was, like, our mission statement literally was to create the highest performing, rugged, waterproof, breathable fabric on Earth without harming the environment. And EPE performs noticeably worse than EPTFE in the lab and in the field. And so it would have been taking a step back in performance, which we did not want to do because we saw very little point in doing that. The whole goal was to at least match Gore Pro performance, but ideally surpass it, right? Without the PFAS chemicals. And now you're even seeing the people who are getting their hands on the EPE stuff in the market today saying things about how they're having to go back to their old EPTFE shells, or they're having to look for other alternatives because it's just inferior. It's just not as good. It's not what they're used to. And no one wants to take a step back in the performance and take a step back in the comfort levels that they had been experiencing for literally 50 years. And so that kind of prompted our transition to look at monolithic structures and polyurethane. And what we were able to develop and what makes Indershield so great is we've been able to achieve really excellent moisture vapor transmission ratings and minimize the swelling. And so that's like the biggest thing in our material is there's essentially no swelling in our monolithic membrane, which means you get all of the pros of your classic monolithic membrane, which is the durability. You can have really great waterproofness. It'll last you like forever. But we've been able to minimize the cons, which has really kind of shifted the balance with what we've been able to test, which is everything from EPTFE to EPE to monolithics and nanospun materials to now favoring our new monolithic structures. So you don't have to deal with the swelling. You get the phenomenal waterproofness and durability. Then you also get this great moisture vapor transmission rating because of that. And so in just to sum it all up, what makes Indershield, in our opinion, the best thing out there for a rugged, waterproof, breathable shell is the fact that you're getting best-in-class waterproof performance, best-in-class moisture vapor transmission performance. We've never used PFAS chemicals since our inception, and we've been able to minimize all of those cons in monolithic membranes. So you really are essentially getting the best, at least that's out there today, of all worlds. And so we are calling this the first zero compromise shell.
Hey, it's Christian again. A couple of quick things, and then we'll get back to the conversation with Sam. First, this podcast is a production of Core Outdoors. To learn more about the work that Core does, go to coreoutdoors.org. There's also a link to it in the show notes. Second, this podcast never has ad reads. Don't you love that? As a sign of your appreciation for not having to fast forward through the ads, please take 30 seconds to leave us a review and hit that subscribe button. The audience for this show has been continuing to grow, and the ratings and reviews are the best way to spread the word. Okay, back to my conversation with Sam. How'd you educate yourself on all of this? Because this isn't your average, I would imagine these aren't your average YouTube videos to be able to watch and teach yourself how moisture transmission works. So number one, how did you get educated on this? Number two, I'd imagine you're having to rely a lot on your partnerships with the fabric mills. What role do they play in helping you bring this to reality? Because you're leaning on all of their experience.
Yeah. This question all works together, right? So the education started with just research online, like what's been published, what have people tried and tested and just posted on the internet. That was the beginning. The second step I took was I conveniently, two of my childhood friends had older siblings studying material sciences, one in Europe and one in the United States. And they had both done research papers on Gore. And they focused a lot more on the biomimicry stuff. So trying to imitate shark skin and the structures of leaves and all that. But I was able to learn a lot from them, just conversations with them, talking, reading their research papers. That kind of added a layer of knowledge. And then from there, the biggest thing for me was just having conversations with the actual mills and engineers actively working on these solutions and who have been actively working on these solutions for decades. So as soon as I started reaching out to these people, it was off rip. I was learning so much that I would have never learned online. And so, and so much of it was about the industry, and then so much of it was also about the technical elements. And having partners overseas where they have so much more infrastructure built around this stuff, the machinery, the skill, everything to bring a lot of these concepts to life and test them and tweak the chemistry. They were super critical in that. And then the partners domestically were super, super important for me kind of getting off the ground, right? And connecting me with people overseas that we could trust, right? And so I've really worked with a web of people. I've never isolated myself to just this one group, this one person, this one engineer, this one whatever, because that at least personally scares me a bit if I put all my eggs in one basket, especially with this stuff. And yeah, the majority of my learning has been just speaking with dozens of engineers and experts in this space, learning about everything they've tested in their time in the industry, everything we're testing now. And then our overseas partners are super important when it comes time to bring a lot of our ideas to real life, right? And especially producing it at scale, super important. And it goes beyond material. I mean, our overseas partners are critical for our garment development. It's for the same reasons. The infrastructure they have there to handle the technical seam taping and bonding that's required for waterproof breathable garments is just superior. They have more people capable of doing it. They work faster. The garments are typically a lot stronger, more durable, higher quality. And this is coming from me having manufactured both in the United States and overseas.
So their willingness to help you is pretty amazing. And how much do you think that is assigned to your age? Like them just being like, hey, this guy's young. This is great. You give off good energy. You know what I mean? People want to be around that good energy. So how much of it is that your age in that new perspective versus how much of it is it you just came in with a bunch of curiosity and are asking questions that nobody else was asking from within the industry?
Yeah.
Could you assign a role or could you assign a percentage to either of those?
Uh, a percentage? I don't know. It's definitely both, you know.
Okay.
It's I'm certain my age played a role in it because I hear them talk about it like in the office. Like every time I visit, they're like always pointing out my age, right? Anytime I meet someone new, my age is always a topic of discussion. And it's interesting to see, especially with the people overseas, when I talked. This is I okay wait total. This is, I think, an interesting story. But
Go for it.
my manufacturers for our garments, literally just like we experienced like a 2 week delay in our production this year, which is really unfortunate. And I was pretty upset at them. And so I gave them a call and I was like really on them. I was like, we need this done. Like you told me this, that, and the other. And then I have a partner of mine in the United States who's going to be boots on the ground for all of our quality control and inspection of the factory and everything. And they were asking about him. And I mentioned, and they were just asking like information, like his name is this, that, and the other. And I mentioned, I was like, yeah, he's like the same age as me. He's 18 and he's from here. And they're like, you're 18? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, how old are you? I'm like, 19. And they're like, what? And I was like, how old did you think I was? They're like, 27. I was like, we've been working together for like a year and a half. I thought you knew this. And as soon as I said that, this is the interesting part. They're like, oh my God, we'll really try for you. And they got, and they were like, oh my God, I really hope you see, like, we're trying our absolute hardest. I'm so sorry. And as soon as they learned about the age thing, and I was like, this is strange, but I'll take it. Like, so there's definitely an age thing that plays in. And then the curiosity, and I think just like the determination, I came in like very bold. I was like, this is happening one way or another. Like, this is what I want to do with my life. Like, I'm all in on this. And I really presented it as like, this is what we are actively doing. Do you want to be a part of it? And so it was kind of like this, it's like, wow, there's this young kid who's like 100% certain this is happening, has this really strong vision. I was far more educated on the subject than probably like most other kids, especially, and definitely I hear this all the time. The brands don't know anything. Like, you talk to these people, they're like, brands come to us all the time and they don't know what they're talking. Like, they just have no clue. And so I remember in the beginning hearing a lot of how refreshing it is to speak to someone who actually, like, someone who's not in industry but knows what they're talking about. And so I think you combine all of those things together and it became this interesting and exciting opportunity. And there was also an element of like, kind of, why not kind of take a chance on him? Because what else are we going to do? Right. It's just keep running the same stuff that we run for the big brands and sell this stuff to a lot of military work in the United States, and then let Gore do their thing. But then it's like, we've already done some work on this. We totally agree with him. We think his head's in the right spot. Why not help? I think was kind of, I made it too easy to help me to some degree.
Well, smart, good strategy. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes we think about age as being a hindrance, and I love that in your story, your age is what's helped you. So good on you for leveraging.
There are two sides.
For sure. For sure there are. Which begs the question, somebody launching a business that is capital intensive as a teenager, how did you get this thing funded and off the ground? Because there's a lot of money that goes into R&D and testing and sample runs and all those things. So tell me about how you capitalize this thing.
Yeah, well, when I decided that this all starts with the decision to not go to college and pursue Indersity full time. And when I made that, the time I made that decision is when we were when we were still developing our material, but we were certain that we were going to create something that at least matched Gore Pro performance without the PFAS chemicals, which would have been like a huge innovation in the industry. And as soon as I knew that was happening, and it's great that we even surpassed a lot of those metrics, but as soon as I knew that was a thing, I was like, okay, we're really onto something great here. Especially since by that time I'd also been connecting with the consumers and talking to people and just doing a bunch of market research. And positive feedback was just overwhelming. And so to get the first batch of funding, I basically went to my family and was like, look, whatever you have saved for school, it makes no sense in my mind to spend that money on school when I have this opportunity right now. And I told them, okay, give me like $45,000 now. And if I end up going to school, I'll pay for my entire education. Like I won't take any more money. I want this now so I can fully pursue this. And so my family came together and gave me that first batch of family and friends money to kind of get it off the ground, right? Start producing our material in small quantities and getting jackets on people to test in the field and getting through that final leg of development. And that funding went towards a run of 100 jackets. And so last year we beta launched those 100 jackets, really targeting specific demographics. Like we really went after the U19 IFSA free ride competitors. Like that was, and we would direct outreach to them and be like, look, we'll give you the shell at like heavily discounted compared to what it'll sell for in the market. But I mean, still around like $500. So it was enough to where we'd get serious feedback. Because if someone buys a $500 jacket and they're not happy with it, like they'll tell you, which is exactly what we wanted. And so we ran that. We sold out with no market. Like I had no budget at this point. Like I made those 100 jackets, I had $0. And we sold out those shells in a couple months, just word of mouth and organic outreach and everything. People absolutely loved what we were doing. And that gave us the revenue so that gave us revenue that went into this year's production run. But then the most important thing that came out of that was the traction. Like that got all of the freeride communities talking about us, all their families talking about us, and a few investors in Sun Valley and Silicon Valley in New York City caught wind of what we were doing and reached out to me and were like, hey, this is really interesting. I'd love to chat. And so this was like January of 2025. And so I said, sure, I'm happy to chat. But at the time I was like, I'm just going to bootstrap this thing the whole way. Like screw investors, screw taking money. Like I sold the stuff. Like we have more capital now than we had before. Like we can grow. People love it. I know what we can do. But I had my conversations because of course, like might as well talk to people who are older and been in business for a long time. I had a bunch of great conversations. They were super lovely. And they all pretty much told me in those meetings, look, if you're ever raising money, reach out to me. I'd love to be a part of this. I think this is awesome. And so then May comes around and we're like in production for this year's line and everything. We had already set all our colors and whatnot. And I was like, wait, we're onto something incredible here. Why not grow faster, right? Why? Like the whole mission is to get great products into as many people's hands as possible, right? And so I was limiting our company's mission and vision by not taking money and not growing faster. Is a little selfish, I thought. And so I reached out to them, and then I raised our first pre-seed round from those investors in June and into early July. And so that's we have funding for that now. And then, I mean, we're doing really well this year with the line that we literally just launched, by the way, like a few days ago. It was a bit late. That delay was a little annoying, but we're early. It happens. We're ahead of the curve next year though. But yeah, so I raised that round and here we are now.
Okay. So what comes next I've had people on this podcast who've described fundraising as a treadmill that's hard to get off of once you start. And what's next for you? Is this something like you're going to keep kind of going back to investors and keep going that way? Or are you going to revert back?
Yeah. I mean, my approach is this, like, I think there are certain milestones that you have to achieve on your own. And once you hit that milestone, your business is going to be in a position where you can continue operating on your own organic cash flow and profit, or you can raise money and just accelerate the growth to get to that next milestone. And so I'm totally in favor of, and this is kind of more of a general take, it's not super specific for Indersity, but I think it makes sense for most businesses to raise money if the timing is right. Now, I think it's silly to raise money if you haven't hit that milestone that makes sense to reach the next level, because then you're just compensating for like lack of market research and testing in your own company with capital, which eventually will just cause your own doom, right? Your company will fail eventually because you haven't set those foundational blocks. So what I've done is like, I got as far, like just the Indersity progression is I tried to get as far as I could on my own without any cash. And then I had to get cash. And so I raised the money for my family. And then I got as far as I could, or technically I could have kept going on my own, fine. But what I did is the next milestone was prove traction at market, prove demand, prove that there's a niche demographic that cares about this, and that there's a scale model, right? This company can actually grow. And so I did that off the back of that initial raise, right? By selling all those jackets, talking to the communities, getting all the traction. The fact that I had investors coming to me, I think was also really indicative of this. Like I've done, I said no investor outreach. It's all been organic. And so then I hit this point where I was like, okay, I've proved this. What's the next step for Indersity? And the next step for Indersity is expand the product line to reach more people, get our material in more people's hands, and just grow the awareness, right? Get more product out there. And so I was limited by the amount of capital that I had. I can only make so many jackets and pants. I can only add so many SKUs. I can only go through so much development. Like if I didn't raise, like right now we're wrapping up the development of a lightweight spring material, right? Which is as innovative as our rugged material. And if I didn't raise, we would have never been able to pursue that this year. It might have been another 2 years down the line. And so it made sense at that point to raise, to accelerate our product line expansion, getting more products into people's hands, more awareness on just the topic, right? The subject matter. And so the next milestone, I think, is prove the scale models, right? Prove essentially like profitability in the short term, and then build out the model for how that scales in the long term. And then I do think we'll raise another round, just to fuel that growth. It makes no, like, the company can sustain itself fine. But why limit yourself is kind of my thing. But if I was raising money early, like if we were really struggling, right? We had no traction, no one cared about us, all my conversations were duds, then it's like, why am I raising money? Like, what am I even raising on? What I'm going to tell them put money into ads? It's like, no one cares about your ads already. So why are you putting money into ads?
It makes sense. No, that's your thing. I mean, the one thing I will say, and this has come up on multiple conversations about fundraising on this podcast, is that raising money with the wrong investors ends up giving you a boss that you never wanted. And so that's something that, and it's different. Whereas like it sounds like your fire, tenacity, and innovation is a magnet that's attracting people, and hopefully everybody who puts money into it recognizes that that's a secret sauce. Don't kill the golden goose. Don't ask for something different. Like, put money as fuel in the tank and let the rocket ship take off, and don't try to direct it in any different way, which is sometimes what happens when people put money in businesses. They want to be like, here, let me tell you how you should do it. Do this, do that, do that. So it sounds like you found the right people that are just wanting to put fuel in the tank of a rocket ship that's headed in the right direction.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just investors. Everything is people. Your employees, the people you contract, the athletes you sponsor, the store, the buyer at the store that you're talking to. At the end of the day, you need to have great people around you. And I think the most important thing is they share your vision, right? Like they share your values and your vision. And an interesting thing about fundraising, at least what I've experienced, and I know most of the founders that I know who've also raised money have experienced this, is the investors always say they're investing in you personally. Like all my investors have told me that it's so much more to do with the founder than the business. And I think this makes sense for a number of reasons. And it's important that your investors say that for what I'm about to talk about. And it's important because industries change, especially like if you have an opportunity, it's likely because your industry is changing fast, right? If the industry is stagnant, the odds are it's been captured, right? Now, for example, our industry is changing fast because of the whole PFAS element, right? Which is why this is an opportunity. And as things change fast, consumer tendencies change even faster, and your business is bound to pivot. Like things change. Indersity today is so different from Indersity 2 years ago. It is not even close to the same. And so it's important that your investors understand that it's the founder and the founding team's like competence and unwillingness to fail and just determination that really fuels a business's success, much less to do with even the current state of the company, in all honesty. Now, it's important, like, depending on what round you're in and how long you've been in business to, prove the business's success. At the end of the day, the company needs to do well. But yeah, I've been blessed that all my investors have been really great to me personally and understand the dynamic between founder and industry and startup. So
How do you balance the direct to consumer, growing the business with, you mentioned like going to retailers. So you're selling direct to consumer. That's if you started grassroots, going direct to consumer. You're also looking at wholesale distribution. So you've got those two things as like a growth engine. You also have this licensing yourself or licensing Intershield as a recipe, or sorry, as an ingredient product. So how are you balancing all of these? Like, it's essentially 3 different sales channels.
yeah, this is a lot of what we're working on now, right? I mean, and I think this is really a marketing question. And initially, I had really I had them all split. Like last year and early this year, even not until recently, I had them kind of in their own lanes. I was like, the direct to consumer channels we're going to hit on in these ways, the business to business channels we're hitting on in these ways, and the licensing we're going to hit on in these ways. And they all had kind of their own separate strategy. And I understood that as you grow in one, you grow in all because of the awareness. But I really had them divvied up. And now we're really leaning into the direct to consumer stuff a lot more, because at the end of the day, it's what does the consumer want? And if we can prove really strong, rapidly growing traction with the actual customer, it makes the conversation with the store and with the other brands really easy, right? Especially if we're taking up market share. If people are walking into stores and asking if they have Indersity products, or if people are buying less in stores to any noticeable degree, and we are proving an uptrend in our direct consumer sales, that's indicative that in that shop, our product will do well. Especially if it's like we're in Utah, or we're in Seattle, and we are selling a ton of stuff in Seattle, and the stores might have this slow decline, which is happening actually. Like, less and less outerwear is bought in brick and mortar shops nowadays. We can go to that store and say, we're selling a ton here. Like, we're growing fast. And as they're like, yeah, I've just heard of you like the other week. I just heard of you a month ago. My friend just told me about you. So interesting. That conversation is much more effective, and also better for our business because it means we're partnering with the right people, but much more effective than if we were to go in kind of cold and just be like, look at our product, explain our product, etc. Now, I've still done my rounds, making it just introducing people, but now I'm not hard selling anyone. Like, I'll go into stores, and I have colleagues of mine go into stores, and simply just to introduce ourselves, tell them what we do. We won't bring any product. We won't sell anything. Just show them the website maybe, and try and build an actual connection, just so that when they do see us down the line, which we believe is inevitable, it really sticks. And it's a similar thing for the licensing. As soon as the brands start picking up that people want our material and know about our material, and we're doing well selling our material, they're going to be inclined to check it out. And I mean, I get like 2 emails a month from brands asking for conversations about the material. And to this point, I've turned everyone down because I'm kind of holding out. I'm like, let me build my brand a bit more, and then we can talk.
Okay,
Which
so
is an example of how an investor might not be. If you have the wrong investor, they might be like, take the money, like, sell your people. But we have this greater vision for our company. We don't want to just sell our material to anyone and just sell out early and risk any potential brand harm. So
Okay, I was going to ask you about that. So if you're creating product in your own brand, Indersity, and then you this is kind of, you got the secret sauce, and you know that one day you want to then license out that secret sauce to other people. So you've kind of hit the question, is like, how will you approach that? Like, what are you looking for? Are you looking for time and market? Are you looking for, like, to be the apex predator? Like, what is it that you're looking for to start licensing it out?
yeah, I mean, it's okay. What we're looking for, I mean, ultimately what Indersity is looking for is just to see top performing solutions on the market that don't have PFAS chemicals, right? Like our ultimate vision, we make a point to really disconnect it from ourselves. Like if North Face came out with if they somehow drastically improved their future light material and it all of a sudden became this exceptional waterproof breathable fabric and there were no PFAS chemicals in it, that's a win in our book, because we were a part of this movement, and we were definitely at the forefront of this movement in the development behind the scenes stuff, and now increasingly in the public side too. Now, from a business standpoint, if you were to ask like the company what we want to do, it would be to be an apex predator, like a take on Gore in this matter, and get our material into all of those top line products, because that it's just fitting. Like our material is incredible, proven by the people who bought our jackets, proven by the athletes wearing our jackets, and proven by the lab metrics, proven by everything you can measure. And so for us, it's like, this is special. The market's telling us it's special. Everyone loves it. So it is, why not go after the best from a business standpoint?
So is the right brand just not contacted you yet? Like
No.
if the North Face calls
There
tomorrow,
are a couple.
do you license it if the North Face calls you tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
If the North Face hasn't called me.
Okay.
That's the question.
We're just waiting for Arc'teryx and the North Face.
Arc'teryx is interesting because they're I don't want to. Oh, I mean,
Nobody listens to this podcast. It's just me and you talking. Go for it.
I mean, Arc'teryx is interesting because you need to think about how the brands align. You know, like when a brand reaches out, let's say there's brand X. Brand X reaches out to me, and they're huge, multi-billion-dollar company, and they're saying we love this. Like we're all about the sustainable movement. It's incredible performance. People love it. We'd love to talk about licensing it. But then we look at their brand and their campaigns harm the environment, and they've actively fueled this multi-billion-dollar industry, killing the environment and causing cancer to like dozens of local neighborhoods without blinking an eye. And then it's not until regulation comes out that they're now all of a sudden all on the sustainability wave, especially when even with the regulation, they're still funding the production of PFAS chemicals behind the scenes for military applications and other closed doors and other rooms that have closed doors to the public that no one knows about. There's definitely conflict there, right? Like, what does that say about Indersity if we license the material? And it's like, in my mind, a little bit of a sellout. You know, it's a little bit like, but like, there are two sides, because then the other part of my mind is like, but we're replacing their harm, right? Like, so we're still, if it's not us, what are they going to turn to, right? And so we know that we have the best. So there's an element of like, I don't know what the high road is. You know, it gets foggy, at least in my mind, and this is something we're definitely working on. But the branding conflict is definitely something we're aware of. But then there's also the element of like, when they have our material in their product line and they're promoting us and they're associating with us, that is tremendous progress for the industry, because now they've moved forward, right? And that is a huge platform for more consumers to become aware and so forth. But then if they told us like, oh, but by the way, behind the scenes, we're still going to be manufacturing and putting money into this stuff, that's not good, then that becomes a little bit of a tougher decision for us. But there are a lot of things that we think about with the licensing, which is why we've been hesitant to, you know, kind of really, we've not pushed hard for licensing at all. I've not reached out to any brands. I've not had any meaningful meetings about it. And it's because we're really trying to figure out what is the right direction so that we don't tarnish our brands at all. And we really are staying true to our vision of supporting this industry as it grows into this new era where performance and sustainability are going hand in hand. So,
Well, I appreciate any founder who leads with their core values, like you're doing with that. So anytime you use your core values as a filter to run your decisions through, I applaud you, and I think you're on the right track. So wherever that leads you, that's up for you to decide. But the fact that you're bringing it back to your core values to answer that question shows profound wisdom. So good on you for that. I want to bring it back to direct to consumer for 1 second, because so you've had this early stage traction, and you really focused on those free ride skiers, and that you found the niche of the niche that you're going to focus on. What are the next phases for your growth in growing the direct to consumer business?
Yeah. This is exciting for me to talk about because this is what we're working on now. We're doing, okay. I'll kind of talk about our strategy a bit and kind of how we plan on growing, and then like what this could look like in the long run, because it definitely evolves. So from last year, we really have two customer bases when you think about Indersity's, like who's buying Indersity. And the first and primary one is the free ride skiers, the ski bums who are out there 80 days a year, backcountry skiing. Like they get so excited when they see it's just going to dump. And they're out there when it rains. Like that's that first core group, and they need the gear, right? And they truly believe in our vision and everything. The second group is the wealthy tech bro who skis 2 weeks a year, lives in Boulder, lives in New York, lives in LA, Silicon Valley, and really loves our vision and what we stand for, and have money for and just want the best gear. They just want it, and they think it looks great, and they love the story. Well, we're happy to sell to everyone, right? Because we're getting our product out there. We really tailor our brand around that core community, because that's what it's all about, and that's what we targeted with our beta launch and everything. As we grow, our strategy is to essentially build campaigns around our core community, right? So we're finding things that they care about. The most obvious is the environment, right? And then we are trying to tailor these campaigns to those core values that they hold, which they've told us about because we interact with them monthly, right? We talk to these guys all the time because they're the foundational core of our company. And then we call them and we incorporate them in what we do, right? And so this stimulates this like really powerful word of mouth throughout these super niche communities, because they're telling all of their friends who engage in the same activities, likely share the same values, live in the same areas, what we're working on. And these campaigns are tailored towards their values. And so everyone gets super excited. They're like, wow, they create this excellent product. They have this really cool material. It really suits my needs as a skier, climber, whatever it is. But as a brand, they are really dialed. Like they share the values that we share, which is what really gets this strong brand loyalty and makes our customers advocates for us. And so that's really like our direct to consumer strategy. And this year is revolving a lot around physical like pop-up events, right? Where we're able to connect with them live and in person, talk to them. So they can see what we're working on. We can display new developments we're working on. And so we're doing a lot of that to connect with these communities. It's also like super targeted. We know exactly where we're going. We have 6 contacts who own our jacket in this area that we can talk to and help spread the word. And then we're working on the digital side with these kind of broader campaigns that are really rooted in the values of our customers. Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to what do your customers care about? And so we try to stay true to them and keep them, super tapped in with the brand. And we try to work together on a lot of it. So that's like the direct to consumer strategy now. As we grow, these campaigns will just become bigger, and likely we'll just have more campaigns targeting on more demographics, right? So we can broaden our reach.
You're building a community, and the community is going to get bigger.
Yeah, exactly. Like if
That's
you
amazing.
keep that fundamental approach of like center everything around your actual customers who already love your brand, you're gonna grow really, really fast, and it's gonna be a powerful growth, like meaningful growth, rather than just millions of views on a post that doesn't actually garner any real traction for the business or the mission and the vision.
What's been the most valuable lesson that you've learned so far in this venture?
Oh God, so many lessons. I think for me personally, the most valuable lesson has been like act immediately. Like don't wait on any, like do not wait. Like there's no time to wait. And so this mistake is inevitable sometimes, and it definitely cropped up a ton in the early stages, right? I mean, that's like the delay in our factory I mentioned earlier had to do with, it literally was because the main label that goes on the inside of the jacket, that was the only thing that was delayed, and it was because I ended up putting that on the back burner for a few weeks, and that ended up pushing our production back. And it's just like those mistakes are like kill me because it's like so simple. I could have sent one email and that whole thing would have been fixed. So I would say, at least the first thing that came to mind was like, do not wait. Like as soon as something needs to be done, unless there's like a more important pressing matter that you're currently working on, act immediately. And then the second, I'd say for the business, I mean, oh wait. The other thing I think is super important is staying super true to your vision. Like that's important. And in all of your conversations, if everything you do is through is through the scope of like, does this support the company's mission and vision, you'll almost always make the right decision. So that's the other thing I'll say. And then for the business, it's speed always wins. I think I've learned this. I think the faster you move, the higher chance you have of winning in whatever it is. Selling more product, reaching more people, developing better product. Like speed is always number one, because if you have a faster iterating cycle than your competitors, you will get more tries, more swings. And so it's even if they're slightly lower quality swings, you will, I think, win in the end. So like move as fast as possible. Don't let anything, like don't wait on anything, like act immediately if it's important, and then stay true to the core vision and values of the company in all of your decision making. That goes for hiring, who you're taking money from, why you're taking money, how you're selling product, your marketing campaigns, all of that. Those three things I think are the most important.
How do you want to grow as a founder in the next few years?
This is interesting. This is interesting because I just brought on like my first proper employee, like chief of marketing officer, and that's new for me. Never had employees. I've been obviously managing contractors and teams of people for a couple of years now, but having like someone full time like on your company is definitely different. I think something that's important to me as a founder is to be involved. I don't want to let anything really slip. I don't want to ever be unaware of something that's happening in the business. So as we scale, at least for the foreseeable future, I want to be involved and have my hands in everything that we do, be super hands-on, no matter what, no matter how big we get. I definitely am going to have conversations with our customers, be boots on the ground, test the product myself. Like, I think that's super important for the founder, like, because that's the core of the company. Like, if the CEO, the founder, doesn't really understand what the customer wants and what they don't like about their current product, and like how their product is performing, then what do they know? Like, they can just look at spreadsheets all day. Like, you need to be able to do that, but you also need to really have a deep understanding for what's actively happening in the communities that are buying your products and caring about your company. So yeah, I guess the important thing for me is just to be hands-on and involved with everything, and at least the important things, like the customers and their values and how we grow as a company. So,
Well, that leads to a question then. How are you going to be able to continue skiing as many days as possible while growing this company?
yeah, I'm already struggling with that. Like, I was thinking about it this year. I was like, am I even going to be able to ski this year? And this year we're doing this. We're going on a trip with our athletes, and I'll be one of the videographers. So that'll be an opportunity for me to ski. When we develop new products, I make a point to test it myself. So that's also an opportunity for me to ski and climb and hike and everything. But I mean, I'm already seeing it. Like, it's a lot less play time on the mountain for sure. It's yeah, it's inevitable, but the trade-off's worth it. Like, I really believe in what we're doing, and I think it's super important for the industry and for the world, the actual planet, and the people who do get to enjoy our products on the mountain. So I'll make that trade-off any day. Less
All right.
skiing for
All right.
more. Yeah,
It's also important, though, to set it as a priority for yourself so you take care of yourself, too.
that's fair. That's why I test the products. I get out there.
Good.
I
All right.
film the athletes.
There you go. Cool. The question I always end with is, how do you define success for yourself?
Yeah. Um, I think success to me is um, at the end of the year or quarter or whatever time frame you want to look at. If I look back and I can honestly tell myself I showed up every day and tried my hardest, that was a success. Um, I don't think you can ask. There's no more you can ask out of yourself other than did I give my all into this thing that I cared about. Um, and if the answer is yes, you showed up and did your absolute best and accomplished as much as I thought was possible, then that was an extremely successful quarter, year, whatever you want to look at. Um, yeah.
Great. Sam, like I said in our first conversation, you're super inspiring, man. And I'm so stoked to have you on this and have this conversation with you and share more of what you're doing with other people out there. This is certainly not the last we will be hearing you and of the brand. Yeah, it's you're values driven. You are holding true to your vision for the company, and that's super impressive for a guy your age. And what you've accomplished so far is super inspiring, man. So thank you. Keep going. We're rooting you on. You definitely put fuel in other people's tanks. I've connected you with a couple of people, and we've talked to the same people, and afterwards they'll text me like, "Holy cow, that kid is so energizing. It's so awesome." Not to call you a kid in a demeaning way. It's more of like, "Holy shit, this kid is going somewhere," and it's very cool.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. I'm sure that we'll chat again sometime soon. And yeah, I appreciate it. I'm excited with where this is going. So
I'm excited to see where you take it, man. It's very cool.
thank you.
Thanks so much for listening all the way to the end of this podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend who you think may enjoy it too. You can also take a few seconds to subscribe to the podcast. Anything you do to help share the love here, we'd appreciate it. Thanks so much for following along, and we'll see you next time.